talk about mental illness. Woo! If the frame looks a little different, or I look slightly more frazzled, I filmed this entire video and then realized that my phone recorded none of it. We love that for me. Hi and welcome back. If you're new, go and look at my intro video. It kind of explains who I am, what this channel is, what you'll expect to find here. If you're returning, welcome. I'm so glad that you decided to come back. A real life thing, yes, I realized that it's April in Texas. I'm wearing this, but we're having a cozy day. I've had a long day and it's freezing in my house. So this is just how we're doing. If you notice how my hand, I can't quite bend and it's weird over here. Helping with the middle school musical. And in moving a set piece, a staple got caught in my finger and just sliced all the way down. It really hurts. So if my hands are kind of weird, I can't quite bend this one. It's real life. Today we're going to be talking more on the recovery and mental illness side of things. If that's not the type of video that you're sticking around for, I understand. I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. Before I can start any sort of series on recovery or eating disorders or mental health or anything like that, I really need to explain a lot of the lingo, kind of making like a key, like this video will be a key. In this world, there's a lot of long names for things. Subsequently, there's a lot of acronyms to make things a lot easier. So kind of explaining that here when I'm saying all these letters and different words, you're not like, because if you don't know what it is, it kind of sounds a little bit like a different language. So getting that baseline so that in later videos when I use those terms and those abbreviations in a pretty normalized context, it'll make a lot more sense because you'll have seen this. If you would like to see a video later explaining in depth what my eating disorder and my journey was like, which I think I'm going to make anyway, but if that's something you'd like to see, let me know and I can do a whole video on that. You'll get a little peek today, but I can do a much more in-depth one later if y'all would like. Ooh, I just hit this and it made a noise. Let's start off with some basics, some eating disorder terms. First of all, the overarching one, ED, eating disorder. But I bet y'all figured that out. Y'all are smarties. You knew that one. You knew that one. I know you do. I'm just giving you an easy one. ED, also, you'll sometimes hear me refer to it, and a lot of other people refer to it as Ed, like the name. I personally named my eating disorder Val. Her name is Val. If your name is Val and you're watching this, I'm sure you're a lovely person. I love you already. I don't know why I picked the name Val. That's just what I named her. It had to be somebody's name. Yes, I will call my eating disorder also Ed. Yes, I would say she's a girl. It's 2019. We ain't got no gender stereotypes up in here. It's her. Her name is Ed. It may seem very weird that I'm talking about my eating disorder if it's like a separate entity, a separate person. While this may seem kind of strange, it's actually one of the most basic and important things that you learn in eating disorder treatment. Because people like me, especially with mental illnesses, we definitely have a tendency to blame ourselves. And yes, I understand that part of it is quote-unquote our fault, like we're making the decision to not eat or do this, that, or the other, but a lot of it is outside of our control. And it's very hard when it's not like I can look and see, oh, I have a broken bone that's causing me pain. You can't see it, it's in your thoughts, and so it's very easy to be like, this is me, I'm just a terrible person, I'm horrible at everything, why can't I just be normal, why can't I just eat right, why can't I do this? Society perpetuates that a little bit too, and it makes it really difficult, so I found it very helpful to separate, and they had us do this in treatment too, it's this separate thing over here. You are not your eating disorder. There's something so important that one of my very close friends, a very brilliant and lovely girl, once told me, you are not your eating disorder. You are not your anxiety. You are not your depression. You are not any illness you have. You are you. And you are wonderful. And if you think about it, it's like an illness. You wouldn't look at somebody with cancer or pneumonia and be like, you are cancer. You are pneumonia. They have cancer. They're a person suffering from cancer. A person suffering from an eating disorder. It's not you. It's something separate. It is very helpful, especially if you're the one going through it. Got a little emotional, a little bit of a tangent, but Ed, Val, ED, whatever you want to call her, for me, so her. She's separate from me. It's two different things. She's like a little mean girl sitting on my shoulder, being like, why are you eating that? You don't look good in that. You don't look good enough to wear that. You can't do that. You can't do this. Sometimes it's easy to be like, lady, shut up. What do you, like, leave me alone. You're annoying. And then sometimes you listen. I got a little scatterbrained, but when am I not? So yes, that's something very helpful, is to remember to separate the eating disorder. It's not you. And that's something very important and kind of hard to learn, but very, very helpful, I think. Told y'all I have a tendency to get off topic. My brain is run by an ADHD squirrel on a sugar high at Disney World at Christmas on their birthday. There's a lot going on up here. Okay, number 2, let's talk about the treatment acronyms, specifically talking about levels of treatment, types of treatment, that kind of thing. So first, ERC, or the Eating Recovery Center. That is the treatment center that I attended, the one in the North Texas area. They have different locations around the US, it's kind of like a chain. This isn't any sort of like, I worked there, they're paying me to say this. No. Just being real that I was in treatment and that center particularly really worked well for me. I don't have any comparison. I've never been to any other treatment center, only been to the one. And what I really liked is that they had groups and things for family members. Other centers may do this, I have no clue. Groups for my parents, for my sister, even have alumni groups. I'm technically an alumni of the Eating Recovery Center because I've graduated treatment. Alumni groups, because once you're out, it gets kind of easy to feel like you're alone in your struggle, because when you're there, you're surrounded by other people close to your age who are also like, oh yeah, what you're going through is the same, like me on a daily basis. Like, yeah, I totally get it. While it is nice, believe me, I used to be in my own home with my friends at school, not in a treatment center, but it can be hard because you're like, am I the only one going through this? Am I alone? Am I crazy? Like, what's up with me? Why am I the only one? And so that can be really helpful too. I'm gonna link their website in the description. Again, not any sort of like sponsorship or anything. They really helped me. You think that you may be needing treatment, you have a child or loved one, whoever who may be needing treatment, would definitely recommend looking that up. They also have a lot of good resources on there just for understanding eating disorders, about how diagnosis happens, about how the treatment centers work, and different things like that. Now to the acronyms for the different levels of treatment. If you didn't already know this, there are varying levels of care for how intense your particular eating disorder is, where you are in the process of recovery, and just what you need. This is again what I know from my experience, and I haven't been in all of the levels of care, so I may not know as much about the ones that I haven't been in. Again, it may be different in other centers. If you are someone who's gone through treatment or known and you hear me talking about something, you're like, oh, interesting, what you described, we called it this at my center. Or if I'm saying something and you're like, yeah, but actually it's kind of more like this. Please, please educate me, educate our fellow people in the comments so that we can all learn more about it. My only request is that you please be kind. I am only going off of what I know. I'm obviously not the end-all be-all knowledge on this subject. I am doing my very best. If you could be kind when educating and correcting me, that would be lovely. So the highest level of care, to my knowledge, would be called IP-Res, meaning inpatient or residential. This is kind of exactly what it sounds. You are literally living at the hospital. Even you might be thinking, well, I was in high school, I was a minor when I was there. What about adolescents and kids? They would live there too, full time. They would sleep there, shower there, eat all their meals there. This would be the most intense. You may be in critical danger, you're in a bad place. You need to have doctors and nurses around you, you need to be monitored all the time. Yes, definitely would not be fun to be in there, but at that time it's what you really need so that you can get better. I've never been in this level of care. I can't speak exactly to, does it look exactly like a hospital beds, or does it look a little more homey, or I have no idea. This would also be the level of care where you would find feeding tubes, where if you've seen it's like tube goes in to feed people that way. And in order to step down in a less intense level of care, at least at my center, this may be the rule everywhere, I don't know, you could not still be relying on a feeding tube. To step down, you would need to be eating food through your mouth regularly and not relying on a tube anymore. So the next highest level of care would be PHP, or Partial Hospitalization Program. This is the highest level of care I've ever been in. Not where I started, but more on that in a second. Partial Hospitalization Program, you essentially go home to sleep and shower. Everything else happens at the treatment center. You show up in the morning a little bit before breakfast. For us, it was about like 8 or something, I don't know. You show up before breakfast. Breakfast there, you do groups throughout the day. You have a lot of different groups that you do. Same with IP-Res. You have all these different groups that you're working on, challenges that you're doing. You hang out kind of all day. You do some fun stuff, like we would play card games and different things throughout the day. Do a lot of art and sketching, scratchbooks, doodling, all these different things. You spend your day with other people around your age, especially because I was adolescent, so it's not like I was there as a 17-year-old, like someone who's 30. It was someone middle school, high school. You hang out with them, and you also hang out with who we called our MCs, which standed for Milieu Coordinator. They were the more trained professional. I don't think they were like doctors or nurses, but they were maybe like counselors or on that way, or dietitians or something of that kind. They're experienced in the field, they know how to work with us, they're kind of watching us, hanging out with us, challenging us to, you know, fight our eating disorder, challenging us at meals and different things throughout the day. And so you stay there all day, and eventually, still being in PHP, you can kind of start to get more privileges, so you can get meal passes. Again, at my center, this is the experience I have. This is where, let's say I got a dinner pass. And this would mean that, oh, okay, I've been doing really well, so I get a dinner pass, so for this one specific day for dinner, I get to leave treatment before dinner and go have dinner with my family. Or, you know, with friends, whoever, I could leave and go have dinner outside of the center. Cool, great, we love that. After that, you could eventually work your way up to have all breakfasts off and all dinners off. Now, this doesn't mean that you're, like, only coming for, like, a little part of the day. You're still there a good chunk of the day. This means you would show up right after breakfast, stay there, do groups, snacks, lunch, whatever, and leave right before dinner. So it kind of gets you starting to get more in a normal groove and spending more time at home so that you're ready to step down to the next level, which is IOP, or Intensive Outpatient Program. I started in IOP, needed more support, stepped up to PHP, and then went back down to IOP again. So IOP is the best way I can liken it, even though I have no idea what the other thing is actually like, would be like AA meetings, I think. I have very minimal understanding of AA. To my understanding, you show up regularly on like a scheduled time, meet with people and talk about what you're going through, and there are other people who are going through the same thing as you, I guess? So kind of similar. So IOP would be at the treatment center. It would be 3 days a week for about like 3 hours in the evening. You would come, you do some groups, you'd have dinner there, do a few more groups after. And so this is good in that it's working so that you can, like, if you're my age, you're going back to school, you're trying to get back in a regular groove of things, but you're not totally ready to be separate from the treatment center, so you're still going in and learning more and working more and different things like that. The lowest level of care, which may not even seem like a level of care, but it is, would be completely outpatient, where you have your own separate therapist, dietitian, and psychiatrist that you're seeing regularly to keep working on things. And actually, I didn't mention this before, but each level kind of has things provided, and then it goes more to you're doing it on your own. So IP, you would have like medical doctors and nurses watching over you, checking up on you regularly. You would also have, like, through the treatment center, they have a therapist, a psychiatrist, and a dietitian. And then for the next level, for PHP, you don't really have medical doctors as much. We would have a nurse who would come and do vitals and stuff on us occasionally, but not the same level as IP. And then you would still have, through the center, a therapist, a dietitian, and a psychiatrist. But then when you get down to IOP, even though you're still with the center, you would be finding your own therapist, dietitian, and psychiatrist. Your treatment team, as we called it, separate from the center, and it would most likely be that same team when you stepped down completely and you didn't have IOP anymore and you were just with your outpatient team. So this is the different levels of treatment from my experience, and if I missed something, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to know what I missed. Now moving on to specific types of eating disorders and what they mean. I know the most about anorexia nervosa because that is what I've been struggling with. The other ones, I will speak to what I know, but I don't know as much about them because it's not what I know, it's not what I've dealt with. So I'm going to use specific anorexia nervosa restrictive type. Little tangent, restricting and purging would be the eating disorder terms. Restricting being the fancy term for not eating. Purging being the fancy term for making yourself throw up. These terms we would use a lot. It's just easier and it's the common eating disorder lingo, but mine was anorexia nervosa restrictive type. So that would mean anorexia nervosa, kind of the typical, you think like losing weight, not eating, over-exercising, only eating certain foods, different things like that. Restrictive type being like I didn't have any purging behaviors. That just wasn't a part of my eating disorder. And bulimia would be more of the binging and purging, eating a lot, making yourself throw up, using laxatives, to my understanding. But actually I found out you could have anorexia nervosa with bulimic tendencies, meaning that you could be anorexic but still making yourself throw up. I wish I had more information about what the actual difference between anorexia and bulimia is, because to be honest, I don't know, because I used to just think it was purging, but you can be anorexic and purge, so I'll try to get some more information on that and let y'all know. Two other disorders that aren't talked about as much. BED, binge eating disorder, which, yes, it is an eating disorder. If someone tries to tell you that it's not, I'll fight them. It is a real eating disorder. It is a real thing that people struggle with, yes. And binge eating disorder and anorexia, they're kind of the flip sides of each other. And if you think about it, yes, while body image does play into a big part of it, anxiety, all these different things, it ultimately comes down to a coping skill. Something is happening, whatever it may be in our lives, and we need something to cope. like I said, it's not necessarily like I sat down on one day and was like, I'm gonna be anorexic as a coping skill. Like, no. But what we're doing is it's in the back of our heads. It's like, I need to control something. I can control this. I can control the food I'm eating, whether it's I'm gonna control that I'm not having enough or that I'm having too much. Different sides of the same coin. ARFID. I actually had to go and look it up because I have heard the acronym and I don't even remember what it stands for. ARFID is Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, formerly known as Selective Eating Disorder. When you hear me explain this, this may just seem like picky eating, but it's more than that. And I'm actually going to be interviewing a friend of mine who has struggled with ARFID so that I can get a lot more information, because it's a eating disorder that's fairly that is becoming more prevalent. Yes, it's been around, but people are talking about it more now. Not a lot of people know about it. However, my friend did request it will be me giving the information I learned from the interview, not having my friend here, because they were not ready to have their face on screen and talk about that on the internet, which is absolutely fine because, oh my goodness, this is scary. But luckily that friend has agreed to let me interview them so that I can give you guys more information about ARFID, because it's a disorder that, like I said, not a lot of people know about, and I would like to know more about myself. From the limited understanding that I have, it's an eating disorder where, similar to anorexia, you're not eating enough. It's almost like picking one thing or a small set of things and only eating that. Maybe it's like you'll only eat chicken nuggets and bell peppers. I don't know. Like, when I say only, I mean like only. At least to my limited understanding. I'm gonna have a video coming talking about ARFID so that I can give y'all more information after I interview said friend. Kind of finishes it on the eating disorder focused term. Essentially just one more general to mental illness as a wider topic, not one specific thing, which is TW, or trigger warning. In kind of like teenager culture right now, if you hear the word triggered, it's like, oh my god, they're triggered. But in the mental health world, this is kind of a big thing. It's something you see, hear, someone says, anything could be a trigger that brings up the worser parts of your mental illness, and it's just really, really hard for you. It can be various different things. I feel like people hear about it more with like PTSD. Okay, here's a good example that might make a little more sense. If a veteran who fought for our country and comes back and then here's fireworks, that could be very triggering for them because they've been under heavy fire, and so it sounds very similar. In the same way, something may happen in a normal day-to-day basis that isn't actually the thing that hurt you or the thing that you're struggling with, but it's similar enough that your brain's like, Mayday, Mayday! In a triggering situation, if I'm ever talking about something on this channel that is very intense, that I fear may be triggering, I will put something before it's like, trigger warning, I'm talking about this. And you'll see it a lot in blog posts, sometimes in TV shows, depending on the show. You see it a lot when people are discussing like specific eating disorder behavior, PTSD, self-harm, suicide, sexual assault, really intense things like that, that if someone has gone through it and then people are talking about it very specifically, it would be very hard for them to hear. If I'm ever talking about anything, that I'll put trigger warnings so as hopefully not to trigger anyone watching who has gone through that, or especially if you're someone who's younger and is watching this video. I don't want to be the reason that you're hearing about a very intense topic for the first time, because if you're one of my sweet little youngins, I don't want you to hear about this yet. It's really intense and hard. Little tangent on being triggered. Here's the thing. It's not anybody else's job to keep you from being triggered. You shouldn't, people around you shouldn't feel like they have to walk on eggshells, but Livia has an eating disorder. I can never mention food, weight, clothes, size, anything ever around her. Oh my god. No, that's not what it is. Again, two sides to the same coin. It's your job to speak up if it's a situation. Say you're at a sleepover and different friends are being like, oh, I need to lose this much weight for prom, or, you know, for get my summer body or whatever. You just need to be like, hey, you guys, it's kind of a hard topic for me and it's kind of triggering. Do you think we could maybe not talk about this right now, or not talk about it around me? On the other side, instead of being like, you know, I have an eating disorder, you had the audacity to say the word weight in my presence? How dare you? No. That's not how it works. You need to speak up politely and be like, hey, this thing that you said, it was pretty triggering for me. Could we maybe not talk about that? A little tangent. Things that tend to be triggering for people like us tend to be specific values. Calorie counting, weight, diets, weight loss, clothing sizes. Just saying specific like numbers. Number values tend to not be great as a generalization. On the other side, if you're someone is like, hey, that was kind of triggering, you don't need to be either of these people. Don't be the, oh my god, I'm so sorry, forever being like, that was the worst thing I've ever done. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Hopefully the person who was triggered is understanding enough to realize it's not in the forefront of your mind. You're just talking like how everyday people talk. It's not your fault. You just said something and I got triggered. But also you shouldn't be like, get over it. This is real life. People say things. You should kindly be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna make a conscious effort to not talk about that around you. And different things like that. You help each other, and we need to be forgiving of each other because we're all gonna make mistakes in this process. It's not easy on either one, and we're both gonna make mistakes. I'm sure there have been and will be instances where I was like, can't believe you said that. That was so triggering, whatever. Someone's like, why are you upset? Or like, I'm so sorry, I'm so. We live and learn. So I think that's about as many acronyms and terminology as we can handle for one day. Hopefully you learned something or could relate to something so that when I make videos later, this helps strengthen and expand your understanding of eating disorders, mental health stuff in general. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video today, that you learned a little something. I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye!